So I work for an international recruitment agency by the name of Precision Recruitment International. I have been working with them for over 10 years now. The company operates in 7 African countries. I'm based in the Zambian office here with my colleague that you saw earlier on the screen, Emma Harvey. Basically, in a nutshell, we help clients find the skill sets they're looking for. So clients come to us with different requests. It'd be finance, marketing, sales, whatever they need, we assist them with that. So they'll come to us and say, I need a salesperson. We get down to our database, give them good matches. We meet the candidates beforehand, and we try to make it as easy for them as possible. In addition to that, we also have HR services that we conduct, outsourced HR, and labor brokering. So that's a bit of the company in a nutshell. Okay, can I go ahead here? Okay, so I'll just go into it. When the screen is on there, that'll catch up. Cool, so we start with CVs. We've got a few tips that I've put up that I feel are important when it comes to CVs. All of us have all written a CV before. Even those that have not applied, I know in your curriculum, CV writing is part of the course. So I'll just touch on a few points. And I'm sure you already know these points, but let's just talk through them together. So one is to tailor-make your CV. And by that, I mean simply that, let's say you see a job description online, a vacancy. It's good for you to understand that job vacancy, and you say, okay, you know what, I've got this qualification, I've got this experience, and you add that part to the CV, which you're applying for that particular role. Because one candidate may have skill sets that vary. Let's say they might have skills in one particular area and in another. But if you know that this job is looking for particular skills in one area, and you've got that, it would be best to tailor your CV around that. Just so that when the HR manager is looking at your CV, they can see like, okay, this person has the key skills I'm looking for, and that's really helpful. So that's what I mean by tailor your CV around that. Quickly go to the next one. Do not make errors. This should be obvious when you're sending your CV. Remember, you will not be there to explain it straight away. You're going to probably send it through email. Back then, we sent through mail. You're going to send through email. The HR manager is going to be reading the CV, and you won't be in front of them to ask them, for them to ask you to say, what did you mean here, what did you mean there? They're just going to see the CV in front of them, and if it's got lots of errors, they're not going to take that as a good thing. And that kind of puts you in a negative spot already. Most likely, they would not call you because of that. We'll move on to the next point. Don't leave gaps in your CVs. By gaps, I mean, I'm sure you know that each company you work for, you're going to put the start date and the end date. An example, if you're working for Zambia, you're going to say, started working for Zambia January 2009. If you're still there, then you put to date. That shows you're still there. If you worked at Zambia from January 2009 to maybe 2012, you would indicate 2009, 2012. But let's say you left Zambia from 2012, and then you hadn't worked or whatever, but your CV shows 2012 as one stop date. It shows another start date and another company maybe in 2014. So now, that gap there between 2012 to 2014, the one reading your CV is going to be wondering what is happening here. So that's what I mean by don't leave gaps, because again, you won't be there to explain where were you between 2012 to 2014. Excuse me. So when that's explained clearly, the one who's looked at your CV can see, okay, 2012, 2014, they're on a career break, a sabbatical, whatever. You went back to school. That should be included, so they can know between these dates this happened. When you leave it blank, it leaves a lot of room for suspicion or just different thoughts to say, what are they doing? Were they fired from this job? Why did it take them so long to find another job? That's why it's always best when you explain it. It can give them an idea of what is going on. Is that clear so far? Cool, perfect. Another thing I'm going to mention is make sure the contact information is accurate on the CV. I get lots of CVs, and you find the person doesn't put their basic stuff. You find a wrong phone number, or they've changed the phone number, they forgot to correct that. Or they've got an email address which is not going through, emails are bouncing. Those are basic things which you should not make mistakes on, because now it's hard for them to reach you when they've got your CV in front of them, and then remember, most companies will receive hundreds of CVs. They get a CV that doesn't have proper contact information, they'll simply move on to the next. And even if you've got a good CV, you lose out. So make sure all the information is accurate on the CVs. Stick to the point. That's the next question. That's the next point we're going to look at. Be as accurate as possible. Be concise. Do not beat around the bush too much. It should be self-explanatory. They read through. They can understand. I'm seeing, okay, this is Malenga Banda's CV, and he worked here from this date to that date. I'm following through daily responsibilities. I can see, like I can understand it just by reading it. It should be that straightforward. So make sure you stick to the point. Don't put unnecessary things in there. Put things that are relevant, obviously, to the job you're looking for, and that should be self-explanatory to the one who's reading it. Okay, so let's get into more detail of it. I see we still don't have it. Okay, there we go. So CV writing. I know I just talked about a few points, which is obvious in the CV. And you can see here on the slide I've got personal details, which I talked about just now. Key skills. Again, key skills is an important one to put in. Key skills will kind of give a hint of your strengths. So they can read that and see, okay, these are the key skills they got. This is what they can do, capable of. Again, make sure not to lie if you don't have these skills. Do not just copy someone else's CV and add those skills. If they're not yours, they'll quickly find out, and it's not going to work in your favor. So key skills you're putting in, remember, again, it's skills that you actually do have. But if they're relevant to the job, put them in. That'd be great. Work experience, this is what we talked about previously early on the dates. But here, just in addition, make sure you start it with the most current job you've got. Some people may have had 3 or 4, 5 different roles. Do not put the first row at the top. By that I mean you've got the name at the top, you've got the qualifications, you've got the experience there. So where the experience starts from the top there, make sure you put your most recent job or your current job that you're in. Do not put your first job at the top, then your current job at the bottom. Because remember, when they're scrolling through quickly, I'm going to be looking, okay, what's their name, contact, I'm seeing qualifications. I start going to experience, I'm seeing maybe a cashier. It says cashier, but you started as a cashier, maybe now you're a manager. You put the manager way at the bottom. It's going to be hard to see straight away. So make sure you flip it the other way. The first job you had, which is most likely your most junior job, that should be at the bottom. The one you're currently working in, that should be at the top. So those small, simple things make a huge difference. You'd be surprised. List brief details of your qualifications. Okay, again, this is just the basic, what you've studied, when you started, when you ended, when you got your degree, your qualifications. That's a vital one as well. When I send CVs, sometimes I get clients asking to say, okay, this person says they studied at NEPA, for instance, but when did they graduate? When did they start? They want to know the length. That kind of just makes them feel comfortable that this person says they got a degree, and it can show that they started this year and they ended in that year. So those small things, trust me, they bring a lot of concern. So make sure dates are there, relevant qualifications are there. References, this is optional. A lot of people would put references available on request. So you could just send your CV without actually putting the references. But if you want to put them, you can put them. If you haven't had a job before, obviously there's no professional reference you could put. So you could put your previous lecturers or people that are mentors of some sort. That could still help. And in as much as you may not put the references on your CV when sending it, at some stage we will, or the employer will need the references. So let's say you've had interviews, they like you, they've seen your CV, they would need to make background checks. So either way, references will come, even if we put available on request to begin with. At one point, the reference request will come from the employer, and you should be ready with those references anyway. Cool, quickly move on. Hobbies, interests, we all know about that. Again, vital to put in there. Let's quickly move on to cover letters. Again, similar to what I said earlier on, tailor your cover letters. If you see an advert in the paper or wherever talking about a sales manager, you don't want to put an application letter that's talking about a lot of experience with you doing accounts, like they're looking for a salesperson. What you want to do is tap into the experience you've had in sales, so you could add those briefs in your application letter. I've done a bit of sales, which company. That at least shows them that, okay, this person has got a bit of what I'm looking for. So that's what we mean by tailored. Again, when we say tailored, we do not mean lie. We just mean put the truth about you, that you have experience you do actually have, put that in an application letter, tailor-made to the job description. Do not make errors. This is similar to what we said before. It just makes you look incompetent, and it doesn't give you much credibility in front of the employer. Stick to the point. Again, similar to what we said before. Stick to the point, be concise, do not make it too long, do not put too much unnecessary information in there. If it's not relevant, it's most likely a good idea not to put it. If it is relevant, include that. Make mention of transferable skills. Again, this goes back to the simple point I mentioned before. If you've done a bit of sales, they're looking for a sales manager or sales officer. That's something you could add in there. But transferable skills is also something that you did that's slightly different that could be easily transferred to this role that they're advertising. I hope that makes sense. We'll come to questions shortly. Pay attention to the job description, obviously, because that job description is what's going to help you tailor-making everything. Pay attention to details grammar. Again, that's going back to no errors. Cool. That's a brief, quick run through the cover letters. And we're coming down to interviews. So we started in this format because obviously you need to put the CV together before you can apply. You need to put the cover letter together before you can apply. You've got those two now. We've applied. And the reason I said congratulations on your interview, because every time you reach an interview or interview stage, that's a plus and that's a good thing. Because now the employer has said, okay, you know what, from these maybe 50 CVs I received, this particular person here is of interest. But now I just want them to come in for a face-to-face. So it's always a good thing when you get called in for an interview. Even if you don't get the job or before the interview actually happens, it is something you should be happy of and think of as an achievement. Okay, an employer's objective, basically, when they do call you in, is just to try and see, to say, okay, I've got this great CV here in front of me. Now I want to meet the person, the owner of the CV. Do they match what we're looking for in terms of personality? Remember, CV is a good thing, but that's just a piece of paper at the end of the day. You, the individual, is what the company is really looking for, and that's who they want to meet. So the CV gets you in, gets you like an opportunity to see the managers, be interviewed, but now when you go in, this is now them getting a full picture of you. So that's there. Again, the point I talked about, number 2 there, it's an opportunity for them to get to know you, but again, it's also an opportunity for you, this is the interview I'm talking about, it's an opportunity for you to get to know the employer more. Remember, interviews is a two-way thing. So you're not just applying to any company to just work there randomly. I know it can be a bit difficult at the beginning, especially as a first job. But also we need to think of, is this a company I would like to work for? Do I see myself growing here? And all those questions. Okay, preparing for the interview. So the earlier slides, we said you've got an interview. HR managers called you. John, HR manager from this and this company, I would like you to come in for an interview. You sent your CV. Do you remember? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, come on this date and time. They tell you the location. You've got the schedule. I'm going for an interview next week, Wednesday. So you've got that. Now we're getting ready for that. That's what this is talking about now. So here are a few points I put on. It's very important to remember when you've been called for an interview to research on the company. This is very, very important. When you go for the interview, the employer, in as much as they want to see your capabilities, how smart is this person, how capable is this person, they also want, and they feel good when they ask you a question about, a basic question of what do you know about Airtel, for instance, if it's Airtel, or what you know if you're applying for, if it's in the telecoms, what do you know about the telecoms industry, or have you heard anything about the telecoms industry? And they like a candidate who knows, at least shows some, put some answers forward, that they did some research on this company. That already gives them, that's already a plus in their side. That already gives you an upper hand, like a step forward. So always, always, always research on the company. I have sent many candidates to different companies, and when they go for interviews, we get feedback from the client. The client will say, Peter, This guy came in. I asked him a simple question, what do you know about the company? He said, I don't know. Or Peter didn't tell me. Whereas my job is I link the two. I call the candidate. I sent your CV to this company. They like it. They want to meet with you. Now it's the candidate's job to start the research on that. Very important. Number two, understand the job description, similar to what we talked about before. But in this case, it's obviously the more you understand the job description, the more you can give answers around the job description. When you're giving answers, you're basing them on the job description. Prepare answers to common interview questions. Again, this is a good one. This can help you be more relaxed. Now we've got Google, that's very easy. Just, you could type common interview questions and answers. You go through those. It'll help you like prepare your mind to what they'll ask you. Questions don't really change, to be honest. They're pretty much the same questions that they'll ask. It's just the different people who come in who is what makes it different, because they'll give different answers. Questions are generally the same. They don't change them much. You Google those questions, you're a step ahead again. Dress appropriately. This is a very important point. You're going to be judged by that. First impressions do matter. You're going for an interview, dress appropriately. I've had really big surprises when I meet candidates and I assume that because they're just meeting me for a pre-screen, when they go for the actual interview, they'll be ready for it. And you call the client and the feedback they give you is really not impressive. So dress code is very important. And with this, I'll even take a time to say, even if it's an online interview, I've had clients complain about that. Just 2 weeks ago, one of my candidates went online in their pajamas. And they probably assumed that the camera would be off, but the client said, okay, nice talking to you. Can you just switch on your camera? We just want to see what you look like. Yeah, this is a true story. Switch on in the pajamas, and just that is what he was like, Peter, I don't think so. Just that. Another person I was interviewing myself, shortlisting, talked to the candidate, okay, great, I'm going to call my boss on the line, we'll have another interview. What do? They come like they've just woken up, hair all over the place. And that's an interview. Take it, even if it's online, take it as a real interview. Even if you're wearing just a blazer and top, but you're wearing shorts down, you can see this top part, that should be professional looking. You can keep the shorts down there, but just make sure what we can see is professional looking, as though you're going for a face-to-face interview. Very important, trust me. I think I've been going to slide back. Arrive on time. Time management is a very big thing. Again, I've had many clients turn down people that they really liked, from CVs they really liked, because of time management. You reach late, they feel disrespected, they feel you don't respect their time, and that's a big thing. Most of these points here are very critical. They may seem simple, but very critical. Make sure you always start on time, even be there an hour ahead, better. If you know you're getting on public transport, or you know the traffic is bad, especially now when schools are open, just make sure you be on time. Bring necessary documents. Again, some clients would ask for certificates, school certificates, or say, okay, when you're coming for the interview, make sure to come with actual copies of your certificates. Make sure to prepare, put that at the table, you know, before I leave, I'm going to see this. You do not leave it behind. Again, if you go for an interview, they ask you for something, you don't take it, it makes you look incompetent. So these small things, trust me, make a huge difference. Be aware of your body language. Again, you're interviewing, don't be all over the place. You're on the table, you're slouching, you're fidgeting. It kind of puts you in a negative spot. So just make sure you try to be as calm as possible. I know interviews could be nerve-wracking. You're sitting in front of sometimes a panel of 4 or 5. But just make sure you try to maintain good body language and you don't distract them too much, good posture, and you carry on with that. Listen actively. Listening is key. When they ask you a question, you're not too sure what the question is, or you're not too sure of their pronunciation or what they just said, feel free to ask them, like, sorry, could you please repeat that question? It's better you say that than you go the whole different direction explaining something that's not in line with what they asked you. So just make sure you're clear with what the question is. Okay, prepare questions. This one, again, is very important. Remember, you've gone for an interview, they have questions for you, you need to have a few questions for them, because remember, it's a two-way evaluation. It's not just them evaluating you, to some degree, also evaluating them. You prepare questions. It also makes you look like you've got an active brain. It tells them like, okay, this person is actually invested into this and they want to know more about this. It makes them feel happy. Trust me, you're interviewing someone, they're following these few pointers I'm giving here, it makes the interviewer feel happy. Because in as much as also we get nervous in interviews, the employer is secretly hoping that you'd be the great candidate and they can just be done with the interviews and hire you quickly. But you go there, you're fumbling up, poor body language, unprepared, and that just tells them that if they're like this now, when we give them a job, they'll be doing the same with the assignments we give them. So that's what it does. Everything we do in an interview, everything we say translates to something else to the one interviewing you. These simple things here translate to something else. You go late, they say this person will always be late. If they're going to clients, they'll be late. If they're given an assignment, they'll be late. You're untidy, they say, how can this person represent our company? See, all these things are translated to something else to the interviewer. So questions is a good one. Prepare a few questions. They don't have to be so many, maybe 3 or 4. We've got on one of these slides, there's also a few questions. We're not going to go through all of them, but just remember, questions are always good. Follow up. Most likely they'll let you know in the interview to say, okay, thank you very much for coming through. We are going to give you feedback in the next 2 weeks or the next week. Some interviews, there and then they'll say, okay, we like you, just here and now, we're ready to make an offer. It's just up to you to say, will I take the offer or not? Some of this is quite detailed, just skim through quickly. When you're in the interview now, because all this prior to now is preparing for the interview, now you're actually in the interview, you're on the table, make sure you develop a friendly yet professional rapport. You're in there, make sure you're communicating well with the people, the panel. Make sure you maintain eye contact. Make sure to direct your answers towards everyone on the panel. If there's a panel of 4, do not just focus on one person, even if that person is the only one asking you the questions. So when answering, make sure you look at all the people in the panel, because at the end of the day, if there's 4 on the panel, the 4 of them are going to have a say. So you don't just want to direct your attention to one person, because if just one person likes you on a panel of 4, most likely you're not going to get the job. At least if 3 of them like you on a panel of 4, that's a plus. So you need to try and make all of them feel that you are paying them attention as well. Common questions. I'm just going to go through a few here. We'll go to the next slide. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. This question is basically them trying to get an idea of who you are, strengths, experience, qualifications, in a nutshell. So it's not necessarily of, I come from a family of 5 or 10, I'm the firstborn, lastborn, this, that. You could just keep it as brief as possible, but the main thing they want from this is to see your capabilities and your potential. Why are you interested in this position? This goes back to research on the company. The more you research on the company, the more you're going to have an answer that they can know this is not made up. Because if you don't research anything on the company and I ask you why have you come to this company for an interview, you won't know what to answer me. At least if you've done some research, you can say, you know what, I like the company culture. I can see you guys are growing very rapidly. You've opened in whatever provinces, and I just like the vibe you've got. It's friendly, it's young, or it's dynamic, or whatever it is, and I really want to be part of this. That now shows that, okay, this person has actually done some research, and what they're telling me is what they mean. Now, if you haven't done any research at all and ask you why you're going to work here, you just say, I just really want to work here. That's not an answer. Yeah. How do you handle stress under pressure? I'm just picking a few questions from this list. How do you handle stress under pressure? Again, this is just for them to assess if when you have a challenge in the role, how are you going to work? How are you going to sort it out? How are you going to deal with it? Describe the job you're currently in. This one is very important. When you're in an interview, remember, they're going to ask you a few questions. You're going to do most of the talking. Describe the job you're in. It's now you to go into more detail of the daily tasks, the responsibilities, any challenges you've had in that role. Some interviewers will go into great detail to ask you more and more and more, but generally, an interviewer is going to ask you open-ended questions. So now it's you to expand on that. If you've seen any questions from this list that you really want to ask, just keep it in mind. You can ask me when we're done. Does the company, this is now questions for you, some examples of questions you can ask the employer. Does the company have plans to expand internationally? This now shows, okay, this person's done some research and they're really interested in the company. Do you have plans to expand internationally? How successful has your company business in Africa been this far? Can you tell me which new markets the company is currently considering entering? This shows, these are like questions that show someone's done some research on this and they're genuinely curious on the way forward where the company is going because they're in it for the long run. Again, when you don't ask questions, it almost seems like, oh, I just need a job just so I can get paid because I need money right now. But the more questions you ask or strategic questions you ask, something like these, you could pick a few of those, or even any other questions you got in mind. The more you ask those intelligent questions, it tells them this person is actually here to invest in this company. They want to be a part of this company. Because also remember, companies, when they hire you, it's not just paying you for your work. A lot of companies, especially nowadays, they'll put you on trainings, they invest trips, whatever it is. So they're investing in you. So if they feel or sense you're just in it for the money, it's not a good thing, and they most likely won't hire you. So those are just a few questions from here. Again, if there's any question you feel that you'd really like to find out more about, keep that in mind. This is just the closing. Ask about the next stages. I'll still tell you, thank you very much for coming. We've now come to an end of our interview. You could ask, okay, thanks, thank you very much for letting me come through. I'd just like to find out when I'll be expecting feedback, and most likely they'll let you know.